Ora, muito boa tarde a todos. Vamos tentar conversar em português aqui e aí e com o Michael em inglês. É natural que nem todos saibam falar inglês, por isso vamos tentar ser bilíngues, sendo que a tradução vai ser um pouco como aquelas que às vezes vemos não nos filmes, mas quando há tradutores ao pé dos políticos. Dizem só a síntese, o que conta, porque senão não jantávamos e há que jantar. I was just explaining people the translations will be like when politicians are on stage, they say just the minimum so you can actually have dinner afterwards. So we won't skip dinner.
You're gonna add smarter things than
Yes,
I
I'm going to
say,
say
right?
the political correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Ou seja, vou dizer o politicamente correto. Nah. No. Well, Michael, we meet once again with a book of yours where New York is more than just a place. It's almost like a character where people live. What's so special about that city that makes people want to write about it again and again? The stories are always different, and you always found out about new things about the city, the people that live in it. Why is New York such a thrilling place to write about?
Oh, I think anywhere a writer lives is by definition a thrilling place to write about. If I lived in Lisboa, I would write about Lisboa. I happen to live in New York.
Yeah.
And so I write about New York, and I do pay careful attention to it, in part because I feel like one of the novelist's many jobs is to sort of bear witness to his time. If you wanted to learn about 19th century Russia, you would do well to read histories and biographies, but you would also want to read Chekhov and Tolstoy and Dostoevsky, because they recorded not only what Moscow or St. Petersburg was like at the time, but what it was like to live there. And I feel like that's what we writers should be doing now, setting down a sense of in my case, New York in 2011. So if there are still people in 100 years, they'll have some sense of what it was like to live in it. I went on way too long for your translation.
No, but
okay.
I'll
do better next time.
I'll go down to 2 or 3 sentences.
Okay,
It's all right. O Michael diz que basicamente a cada escritor, não diria que compete, mas cabe escrever sobre o seu tempo e o seu espaço. Ele vive em Nova Iorque, naturalmente, é o alvo da sua atenção. E como ele escreve sobre Nova Iorque, e a sua escrita pode ajudar-nos a construir um retrato da cidade agora ou daqui a 100 anos, também quando nós hoje em dia queremos saber um pouco o que foi ou como viveram os russos no século XIX, o fazemos lendo Dostoevsky, Tolstoy ou Chekhov. See, it was fast.
Oh, you're
But
good.
truthful to you, I hope.
You left out the boring parts, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
But this New York is a new New York to you in terms of the places you specify for making the action happen. The art gallery circuit. How did you find out? Did you go through it? Because it was you had cake baking in the previous books, but now this is a personal joke. This is a private joke. Because em 2 livros do Michael Cunningham havia bolos a ser cozinhados, mas desta vez não, temos o circuito das galerias de arte. Isto é uma piada privada. But did you go through those art galleries? Did you know them before there? But focus in some areas of the city, not only the art galleries, but the museums as well. It's a world within a world. How did you found about it to be able to write about it?
Well, I am a big art hound, and I go to galleries and I go to museums all the time, and a couple of my close friends are art dealers. But for research, a very generous gallery owner named Jack Shainman let me stay at his gallery for a week. And the culmination was my last day when I put on a suit and pretended to be a dealer. I didn't sell anything, but I tried.
O Michael visita habitualmente o circuito das galerias, tem inclusivamente um amigo que é galerista, e durante o processo de investigação, de busca de espaços e de vivências para poder escrever este livro, ele habitou durante uma semana uma dessas galerias, e no último dia de trabalho chegou inclusivamente a vestir um fato oficial, como se lá trabalhasse, mas não vendeu nada. Well, the book sold better than the art.
Well,
at
least I've sold some books. I didn't sell any paintings at all.
That's nice. That's so nice. But even though the action is focused around that world within a world, the art world of New York, not only the art galleries, but magazines, so everything that goes around art in that sense, the book is still about people and about discovery of something within them. It's like another travelogue. Somebody going through a certain period of his own life and suddenly realizing maybe I'm some other one because somebody stepped into our apartment. Is that travel of discovery something that still thrills you to write about? The idea of that something that is hidden within us, and one day later, sooner or later, somebody suddenly might pop by and change radically the whole life. It's not the first time you write about discovery in your books, but this time is so visual. It's it's the main character after all.
Yeah, yeah. You know, there is a certain saying that all stories are about one of two things. Somebody goes on a journey, or a stranger comes to town, and that accounts for pretty much all the novels in the world. This one is of the latter camp. And by the way, this is actually this is very much set in high culture privileged New York, and it is the first of a sort of pair of novels. I've started to write the second one about young drug addicts in love, and they live in a very different New York.
A questão que eu tinha colocado ao Michael tinha muito a ver com o facto deste livro, apesar de ter vivências à volta do tal circuito das galerias de arte em Nova Iorque, não deixa de ser, como os anteriores, um livro sobre a descoberta de qualquer coisa dentro das próprias pessoas. A personagem principal, se não leram, eventualmente virão a ler, é uma figura que, a dada altura, já numa idade adulta, descobre, pela entrada em cena de uma outra personagem, que afinal dentro de si havia uma outra pessoa. E o Michael responde muito simplesmente que um dos motivos que mais faz correr histórias é mesmo a visita de algum estranho que chega à cidade, e de certa forma este acaba por ser mais um espaço em que um estranho visita a cidade, sendo que a cidade aqui na verdade é o apartamento do protagonista. This is a book with more dialogue than some of your books before. Will that have any relation to the fact that you've been working with movies over the last few years and maybe experiencing more dialogue in the scripts? This is a...
No, I hope not. I mean, I really try to keep the movie stuff and the book stuff separate. No, these people just talk more.
They do. Quite a lot.
They have big mouths, these people.
Ok. Perguntava ao Michael se o facto de haver mais diálogos neste livro tinha a ver com a experiência recente no cinema. Ele diz, não, de maneira nenhuma, e espero que o mundo do cinema fique separado do mundo da escrita. O que acontece é que eles, de facto, falam muito. E falam muito.
You know, one of the things that can be a little tiresome sometimes about living in New York is the number of people who speak only in wit. It's just one aphorism and joke and wry remark after another. And there are times, I mean, I'm not fluent in wit. I can sort of speak it the way I speak German, which is not very well. And there are times I just think, oh, would you just speak a simple sentence, please? But these people tend to speak in wit.
Há muitos nova-iorquinos que de facto gostam de complicar a comunicação. Não são só os nova-iorquinos. Também temos cá disso. E de facto as frases às vezes são complicadas, têm segundos sentidos, e o Michael prefere que as coisas sejam simples. In fact, the book doesn't go that way. They speak like that, but it's not that way, some of the characters. Your writing is not that.
No.
But you said a while ago that there's a difference between the cinema world and the writing world, but some of your books have been transformed into films so far. This one here, Ta-ta-ra, and then Ta-ta-ra number 1. The first Ta-ta-ra, este foi o primeiro dos livros do Michael Cunningham que foi transformado num filme, e este o segundo. E antes de passar a conversa aqui um pouco ao João, as somebody who sits in a movie theater watching writing being transformed into images and dialogue, how does it feel? Is that still your story? Is it like and something that comes out of your story? Do you recognize yourself as you see your stories on film?
Yes and no. I actually want the books to be transformed. I want them to show themselves to me in some other way. I don't have that thing about the holy text. I want people to do something with it. My very favorite of all adaptations, one of my early novels, Flesh and Blood, was done with no permission, no legal anything, by a bunch of drag queens in Brazil on the internet.
I didn't know that one.
I was so happy about that.
Ora, muito bem. This one here. Este livro já teve uma adaptação ao cinema, às imagens. Podemos chamar-lhe cinema. Há muito cinema, felizmente. Mas feito por drag queens no Brasil. Is it on the internet? Can we see it on YouTube?
I don't know. It was years and years ago, but you could probably dig it up.
Ou seja, vamos, antes de jantar ou depois de jantar, ver a adaptação do Flesh and Blood, ou seja, em português, do sangue do meu sangue, ao cinema. João, tu lês os livros do Michael Cunningham, viste os filmes também, e certamente daí vem mais motivos para conversar.
É quase inevitável falarmos de cinema e das relações do cinema com a literatura. E, enfim, a primeira questão que eu quero pôr ao Michael Cunningham tem a ver precisamente com o facto de ele imaginar ou não a sua própria escrita em função de cenas de natureza cinematográfica. Michael, speaking about the relations of your books with cinema, I'd like to ask you that if, while you are writing, if somehow you imagine your characters, your scenes inside a movie, is that some kind of thought
No,
for you?
I think that would be a kind of poison to begin to imagine that your books are some kind of halfway step toward their ultimate goal of becoming a movie. And so it seemed like a good idea after the surprise success of The Hours to write books that could never be made into movies, and in fact have not.
Pelos vistos não, o trabalho não se processa assim. Anyhow, after the movies are done, as you were saying that you like that your text can be manipulated, how do you feel seeing the things, the characters, the actors, the places on screen? Sorry. Is it some kind of reward or sometimes a disappointment?
I've been lucky in that I think both the movies that have been made out of my books have been good movies. All right, I have to tell a slightly sad story and then we'll tell more jokes. When they were filming The Hours, my mother was diagnosed with cancer, and it was very bad and it was very far along. And I was in Los Angeles where I grew up, and I called the producer of The Hours and said, his name is Scott Rudin, I said, Scott, I'm afraid my mother may not get to see the movie. Is there anything you could do? Why don't I pause here?
Portanto, no momento em que estava a ser feita a preparação do filme As Horas, ele recebeu a notícia de que a mãe tinha sido diagnosticada com cancro e portanto, manifestou ao produtor do filme essa inquietação de que ela pudesse não ver o resultado prático do trabalho que estava a ser desenvolvido.
And the character of Laura Brown, who's played by Julianne Moore in the movie, is very much my mother. Very much my mother, that's enough. And the producer said, well, I could send over some of the dailies. They were still shooting, but somebody arrived at the house I grew up in Los Angeles, with about 25 minutes of footage, including a couple of scenes with Julianne. And I found myself sitting with my mother, who would, as it turned out, die in another couple of weeks, on the sofa we'd had since I was 15, watching Julianne play her, as if she was being reincarnated while she was still alive.
De facto, aconteceu que o produtor acabou por enviar algum do material filmado, mais especificamente com a personagem interpretada por Moore, que para todos os efeitos é uma projeção da mãe dele, e o Michael acabou por se ver na situação de, se eu bem percebi, poucas semanas antes do falecimento da mãe, de assistir com ela a essas imagens, com a Julianne Moore a representar essa personagem que tem a sua inspiração, as suas raízes na própria mãe.
So you never know what's going to happen when you have a book turned into a movie.
Okay. In your books, we can find very strong references to names from the history of books. I mean, Virginia Woolf in The Hours, Walt Whitman in Specimen Days. It's almost inevitable to ask you, how does these names arrive to your work?
You know, it's really just because I'm a book geek. I'm a huge reader, and for me, the experience of reading Walt Whitman for the first time or Virginia Woolf for the first time was as intense and sort of formative as falling in love for the first time. They're simply part of my experience in the world, so I put them in the books.
Portanto, a pergunta tinha a ver com o facto de haver referências literárias muito particulares que emergem nos seus livros, concretamente Virginia Woolf em As Horas, Walt Whitman em Specimen Days, e no fundo ele explica isso pelo facto de ser um leitor incansável e, portanto, isso emerge como qualquer coisa de natural no seu próprio trabalho. Anyway, let me insist, because of these authors, and also, of course, because what you write, the characters you write about, the situations in your books, there is a word that it's also a value that comes often, and this word is beauty. We feel because you tell us about that your characters and also yourself are looking about beauty. It's some kind of nostalgic, seek. You are seeking something that the world cannot give us.
Oh, yeah. Quick, a show of hands. Who isn't seeking something that the world can't give us? I mean, I think it's part of being human. I have another thing to say, but why don't you want to translate that?
Ok, I don't know if I can. A pergunta tinha a ver com o facto de, por causa desses autores, e não só, evidentemente, por causa das situações e das personagens dos livros, a palavra beleza ser uma palavra recorrente nos romances de Michael Cunningham, porque, evidentemente, há personagens que procuram a beleza e, de algum modo, o trabalho da escrita é também uma procura dessa beleza. Enfim, a pergunta, algo simplista, era se a escrita funcionava como, precisamente, uma tentativa de encontrar qualquer coisa que o mundo não nos dá. E o Michael perguntou se, afinal, não estávamos todos aqui à procura disso mesmo. Go on, please.
Just quickly, in terms of my characters, in terms of the physical beauty of human beings, with the exception of this last one, By Nightfall, I'm very much devoted to the beauty of people who are not 22 and perfectly formed, and all my characters, except these couple in this last book, fall in love, fall out of love, have sex, have whatever, and look like the 99.9% of the population that isn't in magazines. I have a deep devotion to the beauty of most of the population.
And is it also fair to say that in this last book, By Nightfall, there is some kind of a new realism in your writing? I mean, in a very simple way, I think we can say that it is your book more connected with everyday life. And I was thinking about the fact that some of the most interesting movies nowadays in American cinema have some connection with some kind of realism. Is this really important for you?
You know, I suppose it is, but I have to say, this is not something I think about as I write. I simply write the book that feels most interesting to me and the way it seems to want to be written. But you know, it's funny, certain things get into the air, and if there is a sort of movement toward naturalism, it may just, you know, it's things get into our collective gullets, and many novelists find themselves writing sort of similar novels without any knowledge. You know, when I wrote my science fiction book, I didn't know that 7 other writers were writing science fiction books. It's just like the zeitgeist.
A pergunta vinha na sequência da questão da beleza e do facto dessa ser uma questão para todos os efeitos, de algum modo, inscrita no cotidiano, nas relações entre as pessoas, e eu perguntei se, enfim, considerando que me parece que este novo romance, Ao Cair da Noite, tem componentes realistas mais marcadas que os anteriores, e que essas componentes podem eventualmente ser colocadas em paralelo com o que está a acontecer em algum cinema americano, e não só, mas americano em particular. E o Michael diz que sim, que pode aceitar isso, mas que ao mesmo tempo não é um processo muito racional. Enfim, ele não empregou esta palavra, mas não é um processo que resulte de decisões muito determinadas e que no fundo corresponde a um estado das coisas em que eventualmente pode haver um impulso para precisamente um trabalho em que as componentes realistas sejam mais importantes. Just one last question for now. When you write books like The Hours or Specimen Days, where you have this connection with several stories that happen in different times, how do you write it? Do you begin by the more ancient story? Is it something also not rational, and you can begin by the future and then come back? How does this happen in your work?
It's a little haphazard, frankly. One of the great things about writing a novel that has more than one story going on is if you get stuck on one story, you can just go work on the other one. It keeps you moving. I usually need to start any novel at the ostensible beginning and go forward from there, because I feel that each sentence determines the next sentence, each event determines the next event. And so if I wrote ahead, if I wrote something toward the end of the novel and then tried to attach a beginning to it, I'm afraid it would feel a little forced.
It's like music composition.
Is it? I bet it is. Yeah.
Ok, portanto era uma pergunta sobre os métodos de trabalho, nomeadamente nos livros de estrutura temporal não linear, como As Horas ou Specimen Days. Enfim, certamente leram pelo menos algum desses livros e recordar-se-ão que são livros que combinam narrativas em tempos, em épocas diferentes. E tratava-se de saber se isso decorre de um trabalho linear ou não, e de facto, se é verdade que o Michael gosta de começar pelo princípio, isso não quer dizer que necessariamente aconteça sempre dessa maneira, havendo, portanto, deduzo eu, um certo caráter orgânico do romance que vai ajudando à sua própria construção.
E pegando aqui um pouco onde o João estava, vamos aproveitar para saber como é o ambiente de trabalho de um escritor. Well, João just started to ask you about your writing process, and how is your writing environment? You have a routine, hours to work and hours never to work, sound to be around or total silence around you. How do you work?
All right, I am tremendously disciplined, which is not, I don't think of it as a virtue. I think virtues are qualities that you lack and summon up. Like if you're afraid and you act bravely, that's a virtue. I come from people of such enormous discipline. They're impossible to live with, my family. If you try to make dinner for them, they're like following you, cleaning up as you go. And when you serve dinner, you know that what they're really looking forward to is cleaning up after. Shall I pause for a minute?
No, go on.
Okay. And if anything, I have over the years tried to teach myself to be less to be less obsessive. I get up in the morning, I go to my studio, I write for 4 or 5 hours, and then I stop. And I go about my business, and I don't write sentences down on cocktail napkins, and I don't go to parties thinking, oh, this would be useful for my novel.
So you have a working space and working hours.
I do. I did the greatest thing. I have a studio in
And
New
you
York.
work at night? Or night
No, in
is
the morning.
yours?
No,
Morning.
first thing in the morning. I find that I need to go straight from sleep and dreams into the novel because you're trying to invent a plausible world. And if I do other things beforehand and then I get to my studio and turn on the computer and look at what I did yesterday, I think, oh, I'm just making this up. This isn't as profound and mysterious as a drugstore. This isn't as deeply real as 6th Avenue.
And do you have internet on that computer so that can distract you or it is off while you write?
You know,
Eu já traduzo tudo uma vez.
I just don't go on the internet because I am, as I've said, almost grotesquely disciplined. It's there, but I don't go on.
Okay.
Well, sometimes.
Sometimes.
But not
you-
that much.
Yeah. Otherwise we wouldn't have met. First time around.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Michael, com os anos, tem trabalhado um ritmo matinal. Acorda, gosta de sair dos sonhos para a escrita, escreve durante algumas horas e depois, a partir do momento em que desliga o computador, onde raramente a internet está ligada, a sua vida acontece durante o resto do tempo desse mesmo dia, sem frases pensadas soltas para acrescentar ao que quer que seja. As noites não são de trabalho, o trabalho é uma arrumação matinal de ideias e de escrita. But it took you a while for you to become a writer. You didn't start publishing at 20. You reached a certain stage in your life and then you found out you were ready to write. You started publishing slightly late in terms of in the time life of your life. What do you think your writing gained from that experience you have accumulated throughout so many years of non-publishing routinely every day, every month, every year?
You know, it's a little hard to say. I essentially wasted my 20s. I spent my 20s pursuing love and other drugs. And it wasn't until I was about to turn 30 that I realized, oh, I forgot to have a career, didn't I?
It's about time.
Yeah, it seemed like about time. And then it took 6 or 7 years for anybody to publish anything of mine. And I always feel like this is important to tell anybody who might be trying to write. We who look like overnight sensations have usually spent years
Yeah.
working at it with no results at all.
And how you cope with rejection, because you had so many no's probably for a while. And how does one's frustration relate to that? You have a work, you have books written, and nobody wants to publish you in that initial phase. And how do you cope with that?
It's not fun, of course, but all right. I'm not only disciplined, I am overconfident. And my sense was, oh, screw you for not buying this story. Though there was a point in my mid-30s when I thought, oh, maybe this isn't going to happen. hardly anybody gets to be a writer. And what if I'm one of those people who just didn't get to be a writer? And that was sort of discomforting. It was too late to take up pro ball, ballet. There were so many career options that had already gone by. And I decided that I was going to keep writing even if I never published anything, even if I, got some kind of teaching job at a little college and had maybe a story in the college literary magazine every now and then. And as irony would have it, very soon after I decided that I just didn't care anymore about getting published, I published my first story in the New Yorker, and things took off. Yeah, go figure.
Sorry. And what about if someone tells you this classic phrase, "No, but I saw the movie"?
That came afterwards, but it probably comes sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yes, people say that all the time. And I don't know. With BP drilling for oil again, and Gaddafi shooting people in the streets, somehow rage at somebody who's seen the movie and hasn't read the book feels a little small.
Good answer. Tentando só aqui recuperar um pouco daquilo que o Michael Cunningham disse antes. Além de muito disciplinado, ele é também uma pessoa confiante no seu trabalho. E por isso, apesar de durante largos anos ter visto muitos nãos entregues à sua proposta de editar ou de publicar os seus livros, a verdade é que ele nunca desistiu. Não era já a altura para começar a pensar numa outra profissão, bailado, ensino, mas não, continuou a escrever e a verdade é que de um dia para o outro, quando já menos esperava, houve um primeiro conto publicado na New Yorker, um primeiro texto publicado na New Yorker e as coisas foram daí em diante. You've been writing regularly ever since, mostly romances. You've also done scripts for movies, but there's a book still yet to be published in Portugal. It's this little book. It's like a snapshot of a small place you know very well. Isto é um outro livro, é um dos livros de Michael Cunningham que não está publicado entre nós. Não é um romance, é um pequeno livro sobre um espaço, uma cidade onde ele passa o verão. Could you tell us how this was born? Because this is a nice book to read as well.
Thank you. Random House, some years ago, was doing a series in which they asked different writers to write a sort of travel book about a place they knew well, and they called me up, would I do it? And I said, well, yeah, it sounds kind of interesting. I want to do a tiny little town on the tip of Cape Cod that no one's ever heard of. And there was a pause on the other end of the line, and they said, well, we were kind of thinking of New York or maybe Paris or Rome. And I said, well, I don't know what I would say about those places really, but if you're willing to let me do this town with 3,000 people in it, it's a go, and they let me do it.
A história aconteceu quando há alguns tempos a Random House estava a propor a criar uma série sobre livros de viagens. É um espaço literário em crescimento e entre nós de resto tem havido muitas edições nessa área nos últimos anos e propuseram ao Michael um volume, esperando que a resposta fosse Nova York, Paris, mas não, Provincetown. Foi essa que nasceu e é o livro que existe. Just to finish our conversation here, because soon we'll be jumping not a fence, but the virtual fence, which is not there. We live in this age, and for you as an American and as a New Yorker, where things probably are changing, since somebody promised change a while ago, and there was an election almost 3 years ago. Do you still feel that, I don't want you to comment on Obama's policies or whatever, but is Obama era something that writers will write about and reflect about as a new period in America's history, or not yet? Are we yet too soon to find out about that?
I think novelists are always best a little after the fact. That we are better at repercussions and long-term effects than we are. We have journalism for the for the immediate. It was 20 years after Vietnam before the good Vietnam novels started coming out. It's just our way as novelists. Though I do have to say that whatever happens in the elections coming up, Americans, to my enormous surprise, elected a black man of moral character and intelligence, just when we thought something like that was never going to happen.
And I remember you telling me some time ago that it was almost like an obligation for a writer to stand up for America, trying not to get somebody as George Bush being elected. That was before the 2004 election. That was an artist's duty to its nation to stand up and make a comment. So you were happy that that period of American life ended. Of course, John McCain would not be George Bush 2 or 3. No, there was the father before, but something changed, really. And you have an admiration for your president right now. We can see it from your words.
I do. I have enormous admiration for Obama. You know, I wish he'd closed down Guantanamo. I wish he was better about gay rights. I have some suggestions. But let me just say, when he was elected, I was with a group of people, and I found myself dancing on a table in Obama underwear. And I still have my Obama underwear.
Do you have pictures? Private ones.
Not that I'd show.
Ou seja, houve festa no dia da eleição de Obama e apesar de haver assuntos que ainda estão por resolver, e o Michael Cunningham tem toda a razão, Guantánamo ainda não está encerrada, o casamento entre pessoas do mesmo sexo, por exemplo, ainda não é uma realidade em todos os Estados Unidos, os direitos LGBT ainda não são uma realidade transversal à América e são questões que o Michael Cunningham desde há muito defende, por isso, apesar da sua admiração, não deixa de ter também um ponto de vista crítico sobre aquele que é o atual presidente dos Estados Unidos. Ora, nós estamos aqui a conversar, mas isto não funciona com silêncios, ou seja, faça o favor de aproveitar o momento que é o estarmos numa mesma sala com este grande escritor e colocar-lhe algumas questões. Por isso, a partir deste momento, convidamo-vos a entrar nesta mesma conversa, façam-se saber quem são, coloquem as questões e não tenham vergonha. There's one question there, I don't know is there a microphone? Francisco, há microfones por aí.
Oi. Hello, my name is Martha. Nice to meet you. Nice to hear you. First thing I wanted to say about the question, oh no, but I seen the movie. Well, I first seen the movie and then I read the book. It was the first book I've read of you. And from then I've read several, not the entire work still. But I am here today just because I have this amazing and wonderful opportunity to say thank you. And so, keep on.
Thank you. I mean, I'm very much aware of the fact that what a novel is, at its most fundamental level, is a relationship between a writer and a reader, separated in time and space, but thank you.
May I ask you a question? Since you spoke about the relationship, how do you see, do you observe, do you feel the virtual relationships, let's say Facebook, Twitter, all those kind of connections that we have nowadays? How do you feel as a writer, as a person about that?
I think they're great. I mean, we're so much less lonely now than we were. I'm actually not on Facebook I'm not on Facebook, but
João is not as well.
But yeah. I mean, it's always so easy to get cranky about new technologies and other such developments. But the idea of this sort of intricately, interpersonally connected world I think it's fantastic. Bring it on.
A pergunta, portanto, vem na sequência da questão das relações, do facto de o Michael ter dito que um romance é, em última instância, uma relação. E, portanto, a pergunta tinha a ver com o querer saber como é que ele encarava as relações favorecidas por certos mecanismos virtuais, como o Facebook e o Twitter. E, por um lado, referindo que não está no Facebook, por outro lado, fez também, sublinhou também o facto de ter uma enorme admiração por isso, porque de algum modo isso, como ele disse, e para utilizar a palavra que ele usou, isso contraria por vezes a própria solidão. E portanto, nesse sentido, é um mundo que o interessa bastante.
I mean, I think we're moving toward telepathy, but this is a halfway step.
Yes. Força. O micro.
Hi, my name is Luisa. I'm a very big fan of you. I'm just very sad when I end one book of yours because I must wait 2 years to have another one. But there's something you are a very happy and cheerful person, and I think your stories are always ends very sadly. People are very, I don't know how you say angustia, angustiados, anguish, and I think you are not like that. Maybe you are.
Yeah. You know, Eudora Welty said something I think is really great about writing. She said, a writer can write about anything, whether he's like, if you've never worked in a logging camp, you can still write a logging camp novel. But, says Miss Eudora, I don't think you can write about an emotion you haven't felt. And I abide by that. So, do I have my dark periods? Yeah, I do. Though I'm glad you brought this up, because with every book, I think this one's going to be funnier. This one's going to be more lighthearted, because I can, in fact, be a barrel of laughs. They just don't come out that way. It's slightly mysterious to me. But yeah. I mean, I'm trying to write a funny one now, but I'm afraid it's not going to happen.
Okay, but hurry up, because I finished this one.
Thank you.
Do you start with the characters or with the plot?
Oh, always with the characters. Always with the characters. I think that if you start with a plot, you are all too likely to end up sort of recruiting characters to carry out the plot, and they are unlikely to come fully and complicatedly and mysteriously to life. Yeah, always start with a person. Microphone's on its way.
Hi. Can I make 2 questions? The first one, do you know any Portuguese writers at all, and what do you think of them?
You know, I'm embarrassed to say Saramago, which is of course the obvious, but love him. And looking for tips about other Portuguese writers, if anybody has any for me.
Okay. And the second one, I apologize. I don't know if you don't want to talk about that book, but you know that first book you wrote, Golden State.
Yeah. No,
What was about it that you dislike so much that it's not on your website or anyplace else?
You know, I wrote that book in a panic. Because as I was saying earlier, I seem to have gotten to be 30 without having thought of a career. And I thought, I have to write a book. I have to write a book right now. And so I wrote it in about 45 minutes. And it's not a bad book, but it's not the best book I could have written at the time. And I feel like the shelves are already too full of books that were not the writer's best possible effort. I got somewhere from it. It got me out of my torpor. It moved me forward. But I never felt good about it. And I am aware that all of us have only so much time to read only so many books. And I would just rather people skip that one and, read Stendhal instead.